Ravens fans, this secondary is starting to look deep, and honestly, this may end up becoming the identity of the entire defense this season. Because when you look at the veterans, the young corners, the versatility, and the competition that's happening right now, Baltimore may have quietly built one of the most dangerous defensive back groups in football. And honestly, this secondary is starting to feel completely different from last year. The Ravens clearly made versatility, speed, and depth a major priority this offseason. And now the competition at cornerback is getting very interesting. Let's start with Nate Wiggins, because Baltimore clearly views him as one of the future pillars of this defense. Wiggins is expected to take a huge second-year leap. He's already heavily involved in team drills, and the Ravens clearly trust him as one of the starting outside corners. And honestly, his athletic ability changes everything. His speed, fluid hips, recovery ability, and length allow him to stay attached in coverage. And when you combine all that together, you could clearly see Baltimore view him as a #1 corner. And yeah, even though he dealt, with an off-season injury due to the foot, Nate Wiggins is looking to bounce back this year and have a strong year going into this next season. But we all know the veteran in the cornerback room is still Marlon Humphrey. This is going to be a major bounce back year for him, especially going into a contract year. We know Marlon is looking to come in strong, more healthy, less injuries going into this next year as well. He gives Baltimore something extremely valuable: versatility. He can play outside, slot, nickel, matchup football, and physical press coverage as well. And we all know Jesse Minter's aggressive defensive philosophy can help unlock a better version of Humphrey again, because now Marlon doesn't have to carry the entire secondary himself. The Ravens added more depth, more flexibility, defensive backs around him. In all reality, we know that Marlon Humphrey is going to come in, become a better asset going into the next season. We know he dealt with injuries in the past. We know he dealt with getting beat off coverage, down the field, guys running open down the field, they outburning him. We know he took a step back when he came to his speed, but I think that was due to injuries. But I am looking for Marlon Humphrey to bounce back this year. And another player that's looking to stick out is Chidobe Awuzie. Baltimore brought him back on a 1-year contract, and by looking at that, we see that we have stability in him. He's very versatile. He did bring more depth into the cornerback room last year. He's experienced, consistent, disciplined in coverage, and capable of handling any boundary responsibilities when it comes to the wide receivers. And honestly, that matters because younger corners develop better when veteran corners stabilize the room. Awuzie may not always get the headlines, but he gives the Ravens reliable outside depth and flexibility. And we know that with the Baltimore Ravens having to rotate defensive backs, more often, this right here becomes very, very important. Now, one of the most interesting young corners on this roster may be TJ Tampa. Tampa is physical, long, aggressive at the catch point, and built for the outside coverage. He currently projects as one of the primary backup boundary corners, which means Baltimore clearly trusts his upside. And honestly, if injuries, were to happen, or if Tampa develops quickly, he could end up playing a lot more football than people expect. And we know, TJ Tampa, he did deal with a lot of injuries, early in his career. Hopefully this could be a bounce back year for him. He has a lot of experience. He knows the NFL speed. All he has to do is just stay healthy, because he has the opportunity to play this year. This cornerback room, there's a lot of guys in that room. A lot of guys is not going to make the 53-man roster, but this can be a big year for TJ Tampa. Hopefully he steps up in the preseason and he shows that he still has a lot of athletic ability and he can still add value to this team. But one of the biggest camp battles may come at slot. We got Keyon Martin and Chandler Rivers battling at that slot responsibilities. So we got to be on the lookout for that. And honestly, this battle feels important. Keyon Martin already carved out defensive snaps last season, which means the coaching staff already trusts him. He's physical, quick, and he understands leverage and slot coverage. But Chandler Rivers brings something very interesting as well. He's explosive, feisty, athletic, and plays with confidence. And even though he played outside corner at Duke, his size and movement ability project extremely well to nickel corner in the NFL. And honestly, Rivers feels like the type of rookie the Ravens quietly could develop very useful as a defensive back, especially on special teams and rotational coverage packages. So we know it's gonna be a battle between these two guys. We know Rivers coming in as a rookie, from Duke. We know that Keyon, he made a lot of flashy plays last year. So there's going to be a lot of battling going on in camp, preseason. Let's be on the lookout for these guys. Let's see what they can bring, what their value will be, coming out of the preseason games. Just looking at the stat board, looking at the results, looking at the film, and seeing how well they perform. And honestly, we got other depth competition going on as well. We got Bilal Combs, Robert Longerbeam, and several other corners are now fighting for the roster spot. So when we're looking at OTAs, we gotta be looking out for guys, fighting for the 53-man roster. So we can see that Baltimore is serious about building depth when it comes to the quarterback room, because we know that injuries do happen in the NFL, and we can't afford to not have value at the backup position when it comes to cornerbacks. We know Marlon Humphrey, he'll go down sometimes. We know Kyle Hamilton may contain injuries. Not wishing it on those guys this year, because we got to win games this year. But we know that injuries do happen. So it's good to have value at those backup positions when it comes to the cornerback room. And we know Baltimore, we like to have a lot of corners on the team. Having those backup guys as high value on this team will play a huge part going into the season. And the player that ties all this together is Kyle Hamilton. Hamilton might be the most important chess piece on the entire defense. He could play safety, nickel, linebacker, slot, blitzer, and the coverage disguise roles. And Jesse Minter's creativity could make Hamilton even more dangerous this season, because offenses never fully know where he's lining up, what role he's playing, or where pressure is coming from. And honestly, that's scary. And we know how important Kyle Hamilton can be on this defense, making those key plays at the end of the game, whether it's an interception, breaking up the pass, or getting a blitz on the quarterback. So having Kyle Hamilton coming in fully healthy this offseason, going into the season fully healthy, is going to be a big factor on this defense. But another major piece of the future is Malachar Starks. We know coming in last year, we was excited, we was hype about drafting him from Georgia. He's a ball hawk. He definitely showed it last year. He didn't get as many interceptions. He was still getting used to the NFL speed, so that, he's still making adjustments. But we know going into his second year, he's gonna be even more polished up. He talked about, coming in, some things that he want to fix on his game. And, I don't blame him. Hey, always, go back to the film, go back to the drawing board. That was your rookie year. So, come into your second year, learn from your mistakes. Don't think too much. That's one of the things that he talked about. He was thinking too much. He said he just want to, just go straight and make a play. And Baltimore clearly believes his ceiling is extremely high. Starks, he brings range, football IQ, athleticism, and versatility. And if he continues developing quickly, this secondary becomes even more dangerous. Now, I'm gonna be honest, the X factor of this whole secondary may just be Jesse Minter. He understands modern football, positionless defense, creative disguises, aggressive coverages, and maximizing versatility. And when you combine that philosophy with all the young talent, you can see the vision Baltimore is building. So we know this is Jesse Minter, first year as the head coach for the Baltimore Ravens, coming off of a great year with the Los Angeles Chargers. He definitely coached that defense up well. Even Adolphe Awoi coming over there, he was definitely explosive, coming from the Ravens, going over to that Chargers defense, then coming out getting a big contract with the Commanders. Congratulations to him. So we have Jesse Minter coming in with a great IQ. He know how to line up a defense. He know how to create different disguises. So I'm really excited to see what Jesse Minter could bring to the Ravens going into this season. And when you take a step back and look at everything, this secondary suddenly looks younger, deeper, faster, and more flexible. And if Baltimore really want to make a Super Bowl run this year, this defensive back group has to be one of the biggest reasons that they do. So at the end of the day, the Ravens didn't just improve the secondary this offseason. They may have quietly built one of the deepest and most versatile defensive back groups in football. And honestly, this secondary looks very, very dangerous. But I want to hear from you guys. Which Ravens cornerback are you most excited about watching this season? And who you think will win that nickel battle? Drop your thoughts below. Like, share, subscribe. I appreciate you all watching the videos on GridIron TV. I'm going to continue to bring you all the updated news when it comes to the Ravens. And you already know, we out.